One of the things that's going to be a constant theme throughout videos here on the channel this week is going to be injury-related analysis, how various situations and health concerns with players lead to a fallout for others and impact their fantasy outlooks going forward this year. And that's going to have a large impact on today's video as well. We'll be talking through 5 wide receivers in Week 8 that I'm looking to buy low here, whether it's, the last couple of times out, they've been a bit quieter, whether they're coming off a bye week, the last couple of times in the field haven't been super spectacular. Whatever the case might be, there are dynamics at play here and different situations we'll be talking about for this week's games and why I want to go buy these players, have them as must-buys for the week, and try and get a discounted rate on them as we move forward here. So, as always, before we dive in, if you're new around here, you know the drill. Drop on down, smash that subscribe button, give today's episode a like, and turn the bell on so you have a light for a new piece of content. The faster you get in on here, the quicker I can get back to your questions in the comment section below. I apologize last week. I got super busy, had a lot of stuff going on, and didn't get back to nearly as many of your guys' questions as I'd like to. But we'll be better about that this week. I prioritize you guys. You guys are important to me. So keep those questions flowing on down there, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Let's dive in. All right, first up in today's episode, let's talk some A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this is still a fairly expensive buy here. However, after week 1 this season, he was kind of the talk of the town, kind of the hot name on the fantasy block here. And I think that's largely cooled off over the past month or so, with Devontae Smith really taking a step forward as a 1B option in this offense and kind of cooling and putting out that A.J. Brown fire just a little bit. Now, by no means am I suggesting or saying that the community as a whole is alluding to Devontae Smith as the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I think that's still clearly the role of A.J. Brown here, but I think that his stock in terms of buying and, low, obviously, for Week 8 has definitely presented itself as an opportunity. So, if you look at his last couple of games here, the last couple of weeks of NFL action in general, he's coming off of a bye week here. He's been outshined by Devontae Smith, if you will, slightly, but it is still worth noting because I think recency bias has a lot of control over the fantasy stock market. And you've got a situation where Devontae Smith has 16 targets in his last 2 games here versus A.J. Brown's 15. So that alone is enough to get some fantasy football players to panic. And he's just not really been in the forefront of our minds, putting up these league-winning weeks here over the last 3-week span, not 3-game span, but 3-week span for this Eagles football team. So, and obviously that one of those 3 weeks includes the bye, which a lot of times just kind of cools down that hype and whatnot surrounding various players. So, he's barely produced 10 points per game in his last 3 total starts here. He's at a little over 10 1/3 fantasy points per game. So all things to think about here. Basically, you're just getting a player that I think is clearly a top 12 option every week, but hasn't necessarily produced on the higher end of that spectrum. Therefore, the opportunity to buy at a slightly discounted price here. Michael Pittman for the Indianapolis Colts, a guy who has 25 targets collectively in his last 2 games here for the Colts football team. Now, I think there's a couple of dynamics at play here. You've got the situation where this past week, just 6 receptions on 9 targets for 58 yards. Not super great production. It's fine at the end of the day. Isn't really, considerably getting the job done, if you will. You want to see better numbers, better stat lines, and more reliability from a floor perspective here for a guy that, again, we view as a fringe wide receiver 1 here. However, you've also got the factor at play where Matt Ryan's shoulder sprain is expecting to see him replaced, and actually Frank Reich's already talked about this week, and I'm excited to talk about this situation in the comment section with you guys and in videos throughout the rest of this week. But basically, the situation at play here is the fact that you've got Sam Ehlinger, who's coming into this offense and is going to be the foreseeable future starter for this football team. So that's a big deal. Having a quarterback change to an unproven asset at the highest level of NFL football is going to spark some panic here. I still believe that Ehlinger can get the job done here for Indianapolis. I apologize if you guys think I'm saying his name wrong. Ehlinger. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on how to say it. I have seen him play football. I've watched his college tape, but with the sound off, of course. So for Michael Pittman here, this is a situation where I think that there are multiple components that contribute to buy low opportunities, but I still trust that the new quarterback situation will give him shots downfield. We've seen Ehlinger throw the ball downfield in the preseason. Now it's preseason football, so you can't put super high levels of understanding behind this, because I think that there is a point where obviously that information becomes obsolete. However, we've seen him rip the ball downfield. He has the size and frame to see over the line of scrimmage, so it's not like you're getting some tiny backup coming in here. And I think that at the end of the day, he will deliver the ball at an effective enough level to continue producing these types of numbers for Pittman, who is the number one for this offense. Now, week one might be a little bit sketchy here. If the quarterback's been working with some of the second and third unit players, you might see a Paris Campbell do better off early on here and see that it takes a couple of weeks or, maybe 2 or 3 to develop a chemistry with Michael Pittman. And maybe you want to hold off another week here and buy low at a continued date. But I do think that there is enough of a concoction of opportunities at play here to buy low on Pittman, who's seen 8 or more targets in every single game except for one contest played this season. And that bad week plus quarterback turmoil equals an absolute fire sale at this wide receiver position. So checking into the situation, a lot of situations and circumstances across my leagues this week. Chris Godwin here, another player that I wouldn't be surprised if a large portion of you are pessimistic to go out and make a move for any Tampa Bay Buccaneer right now, but I do think that this is the right thing to do. If you take a look at Tom Brady's last 5 games, he's attempted 42 or more passing attempts in every single one of them. The volume in the passing game for this team is unprecedented. They are continuing to throw the ball at an extremely high level, not in terms of overall effectiveness and their impact, but their volume, their pure number of attempts here is absurd. So the looks that Godwin's getting as well, he's been back for 4 weeks now, so a month post-hamstring injury they suffered week 1. He has had 10 or more targets in 3 out of 4 games here, so he is getting the volume. The problem is that if you watched this past week in the red zone, Tom is getting rid of the ball so fast, it's evident that he doesn't trust his O-line. If the ball isn't 1, 2, 3, boom, football's out on a dime there, he throws it into the dirt in front of the closest receiver to the line of scrimmage. So some of these targets are empty calories. They're empty volume here that never really has a chance of converting into success, but the passing attempts are there. Chris Godwin, the safety blanket, the lead target for this team, is there. I don't think this turns into a top 12 play this season, but I think this is an elite flex option in a PPR format or a solid wide receiver too that you can at least depend and rely on knowing he's going to see volume on a per game basis. So I also don't love a short turnaround week against Baltimore on Thursday Night Football here. I think that might scare some players as well. The margin for improvement and having increased success in a 3.5 day turnaround from an afternoon game on a Sunday is not great here. So potentially, more trade bait or reason to not trade bait, the exact opposite, go out and make this type of a deal to get and acquire this type of player for your football team. Just like Michael Pittman, he's seen 25 targets collectively in the last 2 weeks, so the volume again is on the table. Before we dive into good old Keenan Allen, here today's episode is presented to you guys by Underdog Fantasy. When you guys check out Underdog, there's a link in the description of today's episode, and sign up using code SFS to deposit $10 or more. You're going to get double your money to play with for some of their awesome prop betting contests on there. So we're talking Keenan Allen. He's on a bye week for this week, but let's say next week his over or under is set at 59.5 yards, or even better, you could do 6.5 receptions potentially. I'm just making these numbers up here, but you pick over or under and then combine that with a different line for another player here. And then if you're right, you're going to get a payout of a multiplier, basically dependent on how many different players you have involved, up to 5 for a 20 times payout if you get all 5 of them right for that contest. So it's a ton of fun, adds a little bit of an extra element to your Sundays or Mondays, Thursdays, whatever it is. They've got a variety of sports, basketball, hockey, and a lot more golf on there as well, depending on what sports you guys are into. So super fun stuff to take advantage of. Again, on Underdog Fantasy, every once in a while, they've got draft opportunities, in-season draft contests you can join and just add to the excitement that you've got this year. So again, that's code SFS for $10 or more when you deposit. Again, double your money, and you're going to get access to me as your personal fantasy helper. I will email you between 24 and 48 hours after you sign up with your information about how to get a hold of me on our community Discord server. Hop in my DMs. I don't care if you've got 1 league or 25 of them. I'll help you out and get your questions answered for those formats. As a thank you for using that code, you'll also get access to my weekly positional rankings on our site, sizzlefantasy.com, to help you set your lineups for each week's games. Again, if you do sign up, make sure to keep an eye on your email from me. It'll be from sizzlefantasysports@gmail.com with your information. So Keenan Allen here, back into our regularly scheduled program here. Keenan Allen is the epitome of a buy low candidate for this week. So you've got the situation where he returns in week 7. He missed weeks 2 through 6, or really, he kind of missed 5 3/4 games here after exiting week 1 with a hamstring issue against Kansas City. But you've got a player who returns in week 7, plays 32% of the offensive snap counts, and it just really isn't a super big factor in this offense. So basically, that's a reason for panic. His production was awful. He only had 2 receptions on the day on 2 targets for 11 yards, so not really moving the needle. In fact, he's hurting you and probably contributing to a loss if you started him. And what that basically means here is that his stock is down from the collectivity of missing so many games, having little to no production in his first game back. And then you've got the factor that he's going into a bye week here. So bing, bang, boom, stack all that stuff up, and you've got yourself a perfectly assorted bunch of factors that contribute to a buy low candidate, and I love it. So Mike Williams goes down here. That sucks. I have a lot of shares of Mike Williams this year. He's got a high ankle sprain. Sounds like he is, well, we know he's going to miss time, but the reports are we don't really have a numeric value associated with that just yet. It came out earlier this afternoon. This is being recorded Monday evening. So basically, the most important thing here, though, A, is Mike Williams' health, but B, coming out of a bye week, Keenan Allen's going to be fully healthy. He's going to be fully factored into this offense, and he is going to see the amount of touches it takes for him to be a lineup-worthy play. And I think that as long as Mike Williams is out, he is a top 12 fantasy option in PPR formats. He is going to be peppered in volume. He is going to get Justin Herbert's elite level target accuracy, red zone work. He might even see more downfield opportunities than usual. He's not a burner. He's not a speed demon. He's a slot wide receiver, but he is dang good at separating from opposing defenders, creating space out of the line of scrimmage, and just doing really good things as a wide receiver. So I'm excited about this opportunity. I think he is easily and clearly the day one from week 9 moving forward, wide receiver 1 for this offense until Mike Williams returns healthy to this team and is able to make a legitimate contribution to that football team. And then finally, Deebo Samuel here. Now, this one's interesting because the situation at play here is that Deebo stock has decreased over the last 4 days. It should. I also think that opens up the opportunity here for a buy low spot where you can take advantage of some of those players that are panicking to an extent maybe too far, because in game 1 with McCaffrey, those players that see 28% snap count percentage headed the direction of CMC. So he played just barely a quarter of the game's offensive snaps for I keep wanting to say Carolina, it's just natural instinct here, for San Francisco. They're going to see that, and then they're going to look at Deebo Samuel and see that he did virtually nothing for this team this week. Now, yes, he was involved and had a couple of screen catches and put up, 6.5, 7 fantasy points in half PPR scoring. That's not what you're hoping for, though. This is a guy who we view right now as a strong wide receiver 1. I think that there's the potential this trade could knock him down to the fringe wide receiver 1 tier for fantasy purposes. But again, take advantage of the recency bias. I think there will be circumstances where players overreact to an extent that's greater than what they should actually do here. So if you've got questions about what you should give up for Deebo based on your team, let me know what you're working with, particularly who you're willing to give up here, and then we can talk about if that's going to work or, that type of thing. So we can have those conversations in the comment section below. The take here, the thought process is yes, I'm 100% on board with those in the camp of Deebo's value just took a hit. He's not going to be nearly the same player. I think that him and CMC can kind of eat into each other's ability to maximize their volume and opportunity in short passing game situations, and that stinks. But I think Deebo lines up wide a bit more, gets more downfield passing opportunities. Now, Jimmy G's not going to be slinging around out there, but the point is, I think that he'll still be incredibly efficient, an absolute nightmare to tackle in space for secondary players, and I think he'll still be the 1A or 1B option. It's, TBD in terms of what we're going to see from this offense going forward here, but I think he is still one of the 2 best players for this football team in space, catching the football, touching the rock, all that stuff. So I do not expect for him to get surpassed by Brandon Ayuk. I still think he's a more viable option than George Kittle in terms of this 49ers passing game. I'm not panicking too hard here. So looking at the situation going forward, test the market, see what options are out there. Again, to recap, I apologize, I did not do this in the running back episode. A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman, Chris Godwin, Keenan Allen, Deebo Samuel, 5 names I'm looking to buy low at the wide receiver position for here in Week 8 Fantasy. If you enjoyed, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. We appreciate you guys and want every single one of you to stick with us throughout this season. We're helping you get better in your fantasy leagues and having a great time while doing it. Last time as well, check out Underdog Fantasy as well. Code SFS. It's in the description of today's episode, also in the cards of today's video. So check it out, and I'll see you guys there. Peace out.